was the CEO recruitment process. Both Patricia White and Councillor Selina Clancy declared what they called less than significant non-pecuniary interests because they knew one of the candidates, and yet they both stayed in the room, both voted, and both shaped the outcome. Now remember, White and Clancy campaigned for Andrew Constance. There's even a rumour that Patricia had his photo on her desk. Whether or not that's true, the manoeuvres look very much like a SIG fix. Councillor Norris was removed from the selection committee and replaced with SIG old-timer Bob Proudfoot, another example of how bloc politics works in Shoalhaven. To me, this looks dodgy, and it reinforces the grip of the Shoalhaven Independent Group on one of the most strategically important decisions any council makes. So what did we really see on September 9th? Unity when the stakes were low, bloc discipline when the stakes were high, strategic-sounding motions that achieved little, and a CEO appointment process managed tightly behind closed doors. For a council under real financial and governance stress, this was another night of control, not accountability.
So today, we're going to unpack that analysis and see what it tells us about the line between public service and backroom politics.
Right off the bat, the analysis we're looking at does not pull any punches. This quote is about a key decision made in the meeting, and honestly, it sets the tone for a very critical look at how power gets used in local government. So, that's the big question we're trying to answer. Based on this analysis, we're going to peel back the layers of procedure in public debate from this one single meeting to see what's claimed to be really going on behind the scenes.
Okay, so the story kicks off with the biggest item on the agenda that night, appointing a brand new CEO. The analysis we're following argues that the way this all went down, well, it raised some pretty serious questions from the get-go. So, let's break down the sequence of events that the source found so questionable. First, the whole thing was done behind closed doors. Then, two councillors, and this includes the mayor, mentioned that they personally knew one of the candidates. Now, usually, to avoid any hint of a conflict of interest, you'd step away from a vote like that. But here, nope. They both stayed, and they both voted. The result? A 5-year contract was approved. Just like that. This leads the source to a pretty stark conclusion. It argues that the secrecy, combined with the voting patterns, didn't exactly scream open and fair process. Instead, it suggests the whole thing was managed, that the outcome was pretty much a done deal before the official vote even happened.
So if the outcome was managed, you have to ask, who was doing the managing? The analysis points its finger directly at one particular group that it identifies as the key political force in that room.
They're called the Shoalhaven Independent Group, or SIG for short. The source defines them as a political bloc, often aligned with the mayor, that votes like a well-oiled machine. They stick together on the big issues, which gives them the numbers to control the outcomes.
And here's where it all clicks together. The analysis argues that this very group, the SIG, was the driving force that orchestrated that CEO appointment we just talked about.
Okay, with that groundwork laid, the analysis starts to connect the dots and look for a pattern. It highlights several examples of what it calls contradictions. Where the things said in public seem to be at odds with what's actually happening. Case in point, staff transparency. Out in the open, there was a motion calling for more openness about council staffing. Sounds good, right? But the analysis points out a huge irony. It claims the very same bloc pushing for that transparency was also the one driving staff cuts, which in turn weakens the very services they wanted to be transparent about. And we see a similar thing around disability inclusion. A public motion for a progress report was put forward. Again, sounds great. But the analysis calls it a symbolic gesture, one with no real resources or money attached. To top it off, it says the motion was pushed by a key figure involved in those very same staff reductions. And then, of course, there's the money. The promise from the SIG bloc on the campaign trail was crystal clear: no rate increases. But the political reality, according to the source, is that the council is lobbying the state about cost shifting. That's basically when the state pushes expensive jobs down to councils without the funding to match. The analysis argues this makes future rate rises pretty much inevitable, putting the reality in direct conflict with the campaign promise.
So, what's the cost of all this political maneuvering? According to the analysis, you end up with a council that gets distracted from the big picture, one that gets bogged down in the tiny details instead of providing the strategic leadership the region needs.
The source points out that a huge chunk of meeting time was spent on stuff that, frankly, staff should be handling, not elected officials. Little things like, you guessed it, fencing compliance at a local shopping center. It's exactly the kind of routine issue that the source argues is an administrative job, not something that should be eating up time in the council chamber.
And they also spend time debating which specific department should apply for a grant. The analysis uses this as another perfect example of councillors getting lost in the operational weeds instead of staying focused on high-level strategy.
And the ultimate price of these distractions, the analysis concludes, is that the really big strategic challenges and opportunities facing the entire Shoalhaven region just don't get the attention they deserve.
So, you put all these pieces together, and what have you got? Well, the analysis brings it all home to paint this picture of a council with a kind of split personality, a dual character that you can see plain as day in the voting patterns.
Here's the core idea. On most of the boring, day-to-day stuff, the council looks totally united. Lots of unanimous votes. But the analysis shows that the second a high-stakes, controversial issue hits the table, that unity just evaporates, and a deep political divide cracks wide open.
And this brings us right to the heart of the entire analysis, its central thesis, which is really best said in its own words. Shoalhaven Council has a dual character. It shows unity when the stakes are low, but switches to rigid bloc discipline when the stakes get high.
So the final takeaway from this deep dive is that this meeting wasn't really about promoting genuine accountability to the public. Instead, it was an exercise in reinforcing the political control of the dominant group.
Which, it leaves us all with a pretty big question that goes way beyond this one meeting in Shoalhaven. It's a question we should probably all ask about our own local governments. When the public meeting is over, and the really crucial decisions are being made behind closed doors, who are they really working for?
Thanks for watching Eye on Shoalhaven Council. If you found this useful, please share it with 2 friends who care about how this city is run. And if you'd like to support the work, from FOI applications to NCET hearings, you can donate at Buy Me a Coffee. The posts and videos will always be free, but your support helps me fight for transparency. Until next time, I'm Steve Prothero. Keep asking questions, keep holding power to account.
Eye on the council, truth to light, asking questions.